Do you want to learn the process of importing a kitten from overseas? Listen to this video. Once you have established a relationship with the breeder that you really love, and you found a kitten that you really love, then you're probably going to need to make arrangements to import that kitten from Europe or Germany or France to the United States. And that's assuming you're in the United States. You could be importing anywhere. The process is still the same. So you're going to need to find a courier. A courier is someone who will help you transport the kitten from the breeder to you. Now there's a couple of different ways that can go. You can have a kitten that just handles the paperwork and making sure that the kitten gets on a plane and arrives at the right destination, that they fly cargo. Then you can have a kitten that flies cargo from one country to another country, and when it arrives here, it's picked up by a person and then either flown to your airport or driven to your destination. There's a couple of ways that they can do that depending on what airport your kitten arrives in. And then there's another courier that will go to the country of the kitten, pick it up in person, and fly with it in the cabin till it arrives to you. So 3 different methods of getting a kitten from another country into your country. The couriers usually handle all of the import and export paperwork for you, so you don't have to deal with that. Sometimes if your kitten is arriving via cargo, then you will need to hire a broker in order to pick that kitten up and get it through the customs process. The only way to know for sure if your state or your airport requires a broker for delivery or picking up a kitten is to check with your customs office. Now, are there risks in importing a kitten? Absolutely. There's risks no matter where you get a kitten from, whether it's importing it from another country or getting it from your next door neighbor. You just never know, what really, you're always taking a risk when you're buying a kitten for breeding to add to your cattery. Even the most well-known lines and breeders who think that they know their lines inside and out could still have something happen to a kitten, eventually, that makes it not suitable for breeding. A health issue that could come up. It's just, nature. It's just the way things work. But other risks that are involved in importing is if your courier doesn't take a lot of care when handling the kittens. And the biggest risk is when they put your kitten in a courier, in a travel carrier, or in the same room with another kitten that could have an infectious disease, a virus, something contagious, and then they're spending that time together and they're definitely going to pass that on to your kitten. So that's one of the risks. So it's something that you want to ask your courier when you are talking to them about bringing the kitten to you, is how they handle kittens or cats if they have multiple cats traveling at the same time. You definitely want your kitten to stay isolated and away from any other kitten. The only exception is if you are getting 2 kittens from the same cattery, then they usually can travel together. So how do you find a good breeder to import a kitten from? Well, it's a long process. To just find one on the internet somewhere and, agree to buy it and import is probably the riskiest way of doing that. I always suggest that you search and search and search and look for catteries that have kittens that suit your type, and then follow them on social media and watch to see what their beliefs are and how they handle kittens, and especially how they handle any issues that might arise. If people are talking about them online or in any of the groups, search for all of these things. Do your due diligence on this breeder and wait, be patient. Like, that's the biggest thing when you're buying a kitten from a breeder, is to be patient. There is always going to be another pretty kitten that comes along, especially if you have a breeder in particular that you want to get a kitten from. Like, the one that you're seeing is not going to be the last one. So if you just were introduced to this breeder, take your time and do your due diligence with that person. Talk to them, make sure that you guys are on the same page with everything, and that they're not reluctant to give you information about their cattery or about the kitten or the parents. They should be very free to give you as much information as you're asking for. I mean, after all, you want to add this kitten to your breeding program. So find somebody you like, find somebody that you can work with and get along with, and have a long-term relationship with, because that will be the most beneficial for you in the long run. Then decide on a kitten, and then go through the process of getting the kitten to your cattery. Can you have a working relationship with a breeder overseas? Absolutely. I looked for years, I guess, years, and have imported many kittens. I just have never vibed very well with a breeder enough to keep going back and getting kittens, until I found the breeder that I work with now. She is in Russia. I love her to death. We can talk about the kittens. If something comes up, I can talk to her about it. She's never defensive. I just like the relationship that we have. And, now we're to a point where she won't post kittens on her social media if she knows that, I'm looking for one. She'll just hold it back, and she'll let the kitten develop until, it's 8 or 10 weeks old, which is really important to me, to not have to reserve a kitten for breeding when it's newborn or 2 weeks old. That's just completely stupid in my head, to reserve a kitten when they're that old. You don't know what they're going to develop into. So she does that for me, and that's the relationship that we have. I have gotten several kittens from her, and I do plan on continuing that relationship. So that's really the goal. If you can find a breeder, no matter where the breeder is, it can be overseas, it can be in the same country as you are, find somebody that you like, and that you guys are on the same page, and you have the same goals, and you know what each other is working towards, and that will give you the best result when it comes to buying a kitten. So the process of getting a kitten imported is, really, different countries have different rules for travel of a kitten. Some of them are not allowed to leave their country until they're at least 16 weeks old and have had rabies vaccination. So that's some of the rules. There can be some that when they arrive in the country, they have to go into quarantine for a certain amount of time before they can be released to you. So check with your particular location and see what the rules are for importing and exporting kittens, so you don't get surprised by anything that comes up. It would suck to have a kitten arriving and then you find out, it's got to be quarantined for 14 days and you didn't know about that. So just check with the rules and the laws in your country and your state particularly, to find out all about quarantining, vaccination records, customs processes, if you need a broker, etc. Be prepared, and the process will be much easier for you. So one of the negatives to importing a kitten from another country is the travel time. Sometimes it can take 3 to 4 days from the time it leaves the breeder before it ever arrives to you. They can spend time, at the courier's place, property, in a hotel room, in their travel courier, in their travel carrier. It can be all kinds of situations, but sometimes it's pretty lengthy trip for them to, travel that far. I mean, they're coming all the way across the world sometimes. So, sometimes they arrive and they have been urinating or pooping in their travel carrier. So they're going to be stinky, so you have to be prepared to let them decompress when they get home. Don't worry about giving them a bath yet. That's probably going to stress them out more. Just put them in a room where they can decompress a little bit from the travel, give them a couple of days. They'll clean themselves off. I mean, unless they're really, really messy poop, then of course you want to try to get that off for them. But let them decompress from the travel before you try to give them a bath, and that will probably make them feel a little better. The travel time is something that we just can't overcome because it's so far away, and we have to work around flights and courier schedules and things. So it's one of the downfalls of importing a kitten.